Okay, we're talking about content creation, social media, and adding on our cultural values. And we're talking now with Prince Baba Agba. He's in Lagos. He's a special assistant to the president on creativity and a lot more. We do know when we talk about content creation in Nigeria, Baba Agba is one of the names that will be familiar to many people. So hello and welcome to Weekend Deal.
Thank you for having me.
We're talking about content creation. We began yesterday and we're going to continue our conversation today. Let us talk about the tools for this trade. Many young people are interested. They want to get on board, but they've been asking. Some are saying, how do I make money? And we have the opinion that money should not be your special focus as you take off. What about the tools for the trade? What about the passion? What about the creativity for which you are greatly known? How to start?
Thank you. I think with content creation, obviously, it all starts with an idea, with the story. And the amazing thing about Nigeria is that we're immaculately blessed with amazing, talented people from all parts of the country who are able to come up with these ideas, come up with these concepts, and take them through. Like you rightly said, in the initial stages, it's not really money, it's passion, it's a voice, having a perspective, a point of view. But naturally, as you go through, you meet collaborators, you meet people that you're going to end up working with, and you go through that process of gathering the resources, both human and material, that will be needed to really put out these ideas and concepts and express yourself.
We all agree that the industry is flourishing and there's so many people interested in it, so many content out there. Regulatory oversight, regulating, is there any need for regulation? Because it not only will it protect the consumers, but it also help the content creator or creation sector flourish more. What do you think?
I mean, largely, you have what I would say ends up being about two government regulators that really have oversight over the space. You have the Nigerian Broadcast Commission, which issues regulations around what is fit for mass communication on both television and on the radio. And then you also have the Nigerian Film and Video Censors Board, which acts as an arbiter for the content that we see in the cinemas, in the viewing centers, that type of a thing. So, as it is with creativity, it can be very fluid, but they sort of act as the final guard for the public to make sure that whatever is going out is sort of fit for consumption. Of course, these conversations are always evolving. Stakeholders meeting with government, the private sector. Also, you have the people that actually the creators, you have the distributors, you have those that are financing, and then you have the government regulators and also the government promotional agencies that are trying to make sure that the sectors thrive. So it's a very robust conversation where all parties come and discuss to come to a point of what type of regulation is needed. And I think, we've seen the growth in the last decade, which is testament to really the sort of effective space and the room that the ecosystem has been given. In the last decade, which is testament to really the sort of effective space and the room that the ecosystem has been given. In the last decade, which is testament.
Many will call you a young person. You can fit in very nicely and understand where many of our youths are coming from. People are talking about using their excitement, enthusiasm to leverage on highlighting Nigeria's cultural values. Do you think with your position and opportunity that you have to relate to these young people, that's something that they can leverage on? More of our culture, more of our diversity and dynamism? Are we getting there, or are we there already?
Yes, I mean, what you find is that culture is, like I like to say, culture is ever evolving. Heritage maybe stands a bit much more still. And what you see is that with creativity, with ideas, people express themselves. It's the point of having a point of view, it's an expression. So, we at the ministry like to say that for Nigeria, we're really moving into the decade of ideas, the decade of creativity, where, the economy will be ruled by ideas, and that will be the most important thing. And you can already see what we'll call the tip of the iceberg with that. You see what Afrobeats is doing. You see what Nigerian fashion is starting to do. You see what, the music, the food is starting to do. You see the jollof wars going on, but you see the penetration in other markets. You see the film moving, the art space, and you see all of these embody our culture and our cultures in different ways. So, Nigeria is made up of so many different ethnic groups, so many different languages, so many different experiences. And the people that make up Nigeria, the youth that make up Nigeria, tap into their various unique experiences to come up with these expressions that obviously people everywhere in the world are relating to. And that's why we're having this zeitgeist where, Nigeria is really on the map as a center for creativity globally. You see a lot of people want to visit, a lot of people want to associate with the music. You saw what happened with the football jersey, going, selling out so quickly, about how many million, 2 or 3 million units issued by Nike. So, that was done by Nigerian fashion designer, the motif. So if you look closely, you see that we're expressing ourselves, but we're now, maybe gaining and learning the form and language that the world might understand, and then infusing our cultures into it. So, going forward, I think with what the youth have shown so far, and sort of more of the things that are coming on board with what we're doing at the ministry, the policies and incentives we're bringing in place, I think that, even this, we're going to surpass any possible thing that we can think of.
When we talk of content creation, we must still agree, even though we say that you must get your story, you must get your creativity right first. But the big elephant in the room is still money. And talking about the monetization across some social media platforms, we hear that here in our climb in Nigeria, we don't get paid across this platform like our counterparts in other parts of the world have been paid. Why that disparity? Can you please speak to that?
Thank you for that question. I was at the Abuja International Film Festival actually this week, speaking on the panel, and this conversation also came up. For those of us in the sector, these are conversations we've had, for the last decade plus. Every time we gather, we talk about sort of the bottlenecks and issues. And what I said was, it might sound a bit controversial, but I don't think that money or financing is the primary problem. I think it's a sort of symptom of a bigger issue, where the ministry we're trying to solve with the stakeholders is, how much financing or being able to access money is a quotient of what you're able to do from a distribution, exhibition, sales, monetization standpoint. So what we have to focus on is what I refer to as the marketplace. We obviously have a big market, which is the demand from the people locally, regionally, and internationally. That's why you see that focus of Nigeria. But how are we able to get these products, these experiences, these expressions to them in a legitimate, repeatable, predictable way where value can be exchanged for service or product? And once you're able to do that, but then also have that expansive, you see that you're able to reach more people, and then you're able to monetize on a higher level, which means that, quote unquote, for those of us in the creative industry, we say the suits, the bankers see you as bankable or more reliable. So what we're really looking at is not just one thing. So yes, the president last FEC just approved, the President and Council, the Federal Executive Council approved the Creative Economy Development Fund, which really is a unique funding structure for the industry that's going to offer debt, quasi-debt, and equity. Also looking at IP funding, using ideas and IP and people's copyright as a form of leverage, instead of asking them to bring all kinds of guarantees, but to make sure that the creatives have access. But also part of that is looking at how do we finance the infrastructure, both hard and soft, that the industry needs. How do we expand the cinemas? We only have about 70 or odd cinemas in Nigeria, which is the biggest black nation in the world, whereas other cities in other places have way more. So how do we expand that? How do we make sure that television thrives? How do we make sure that the ecosystem works? How do we make sure that the experiential side works? How do we make sure we have arenas so that our big global Afrobeat stars can perform at home? How do we make sure that we have MICE infrastructure so that we can have major conventions, major expos, and bring the rest of the world to us? So right now the world is consuming us, but how do we make sure that that consumption happens on ground? Because that then leads to the hard jobs, that leads to the, you know, the trickle down, the accelerator effects, that leads to our communities having activity, which will bring this sort of zeitgeist closer to the average person. So whether it's the food vendors, whether it's the transport workers, whether it's the hospitality sector, the tourism sector, you see that, you know, once the idea goes out and people love it and you're monetizing it locally, everybody else benefits, and that's the real economic catalytic growth that we're trying to achieve.
I was looking to GDP, you know, because now we need to walk our talk. These young people are leading with their expertise, ingenuity, and risk-taking ability. They are leading the world. They are leading the continent. So how can we leapfrog on that, their courage and ambition, and spearhead growth for the country? Talking about the economy. But you've already answered part of that question, because when money is being invested in them, we know there will be a positive outcome in the nearest future. So can we have your final words on content creation, Nigerian youths, television viewing, regulation, you know, on the final note in less than 1 minute?
Yeah, I would add a bit of an answer to that. You see, this sector has been identified as a unique growth sector and one that is really dominated by the youth. So His Excellency, Mr. President, in his wisdom, created a standalone ministry that focused on the creative economy and the tourism economy so that we have the right sort of impetus to grow. So what you see now is that the Honorable Minister has been given the mandate for cultural and economic expansion, which means bringing in the right policies, the right frameworks, the regulatory, the financial, the infrastructure, and making sure that we have the right types of partnerships. You know, you see the ministry's 8-point plan, the presidential imperatives, you see our strategic framework. So what we're doing is that we're working with all of these to get a leapfrog growth, because we have to contribute more to the economy and beat all benchmarks, both locally and internationally. So like I said, this is a decade for ideas, a decade of creativity, where, you know, ideas and the creative genius of the Nigerian youth will really be what takes the country around the globe and brings the country the prosperity it's been chasing for. So thank you.